let's talk about some personal experience then, because we've both taken magic mushrooms. You're not going to say where, but we have done. And until you start to open up about the stories and the benefits and that and the connection you can feel in that environment with taking a substance like that, people will continue to feel that way they do about it and be very close-minded. Because I think it comes down to the situation we're in is like benefits, negatives, like what outweighs what for people who just, who we're speaking to here, which might be alarmed at the title of the podcast, and they're like, drugs? Why would you legalize drugs? And what can magic mushrooms do for you? That's just immature. Like, why would you take magic mushrooms? Or to see colors and just magical things that happen and it aren't real, So what are some experiences that you've had with magic mushrooms? I can go first if you want.
I've had some wildly varying experiences. Broadly immensely positive. One experience immediately comes to mind. I was at a festival in 2020 at Medicine, the first year, and I'd eaten some McKenna mushrooms. They're like fangs, really fluffy. And I'd probably had a bit too much to be sort of out and about on the dance floor. But luckily, because of the pandemic, there was like very few people on the dance floor because you had to wear a mask, and the security guards were like checking everyone was wearing their mask, so it wasn't really a vibe.
At Medicine Festival?
Yeah, in 2020, the first year, they were like checking people. Like if you took your mask off, eventually a security guard would come over and like tell you to put it back on because it was under a cover, it was under a sort of canopy.
Wow.
And at one moment, I just started feeling like wheezy, and I had to go sit down. So we went over to the Shala, and I was keeled over. I couldn't breathe, and then into my head just came this realization that I needed to go home. Not in that moment.
This is we're for mushrooms here. Not against. The story started in a way that's probably going to put people off.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I probably took too much in a highly stimulating environment.
Sure.
But whatever happened, that precipitated this moment where I had to make this oath to go home, and once I did, I could breathe, and this tension in my chest and everything released. And it was an incredibly blissful feeling. I remember I was wearing shoes and socks as well. And I looked down and I just realized how preposterous it was that I wasn't walking barefoot like the druids who had come before me. So I took them off. And I was just having all these fascinating downloads about the nature of consciousness and the evolution of thought. Partly because earlier that day I was speaking to someone and they expressed slightly tongue-in-cheek surprise that anyone would want to read books because it just takes away from one's connection with nature and community. But anyway, as a result, I went home a week or two later and spent sort of 6 or 7 months on and off and connected a lot more with my family as a result. And I don't think I would have done that had I not had that experience with the mushrooms.
Yeah, you touched upon a powerful point, which I always get, which anything that doesn't feel like in connection or in harmony or in communion with what is more natural, it allows me to see through it. I remember I was coming out of an experience I was in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And I was walking up this high street and I was just seeing, I was kind of window shopping in a way, but I was just witnessing everything through a very different lens of what is just the kind of manufacturing of so many different things. And it just allowed me to reflect on seeing through what isn't more natural. Does that make sense? So everything that wasn't, or that was like highly produced or just taking us away from, the feet on the earth, like being really like outside, straight lines, like real things that have like been very structured in a certain way, manipulated, let's say. It just allowed me to break through that and just see more clearly that what was going to benefit me, let's say.
I mean, that's the annoying thing with psychedelics, isn't it? once you've turned on, you just see these systems of oppression and destruction everywhere. But that's an invitation to connect with what's real and what's true and where nature is thriving, and help figure out how we can do that in other places as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can prove this through studies and tests that they've done, how it impacts on your brain, and it shuts down your default mode network, which allows you to see past the lens of experience that you normally operate in. So you see more of your subconscious, and that's why it's being so beneficial in like therapeutic environments.
Yeah, there's some really interesting research coming through. This is embargoed, so I won't say exactly what the study is, but in January, a study will come out, and it's basically showing evidence from fMRI scans that this particular psychedelic can basically increase white blood matter, I think, which effectively de-ages the brain and therefore promotes really like rapid neural connectivity. As the evidence base grows, we're going to more and more realize the incredible potential of these medicines. Like, I think this is really only just the beginning with the research. A lot of it's actually quite underpowered and very small groups and in really imperfect settings. So once the money comes back in over the next couple of years, as the economy probably picks up, yeah, I think the case is just going to become even more overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what happens. That's what happened with cannabis. It kind of is overwhelming how much more, but you can't argue with it. And it's ignorant and naive to think any different. And that's why, yeah, it's changed a lot.
But I mean, it all depends on setting and the context. And like we're saying, there's a lot of charlatans coming through, like psychedelic facilitators that either don't know what they're doing or maybe have some bad intentions occasionally. So we need to be wary of that. And in much the same way with cannabis, like you say, actually, I don't think the data is so strong for certain uses of cannabis, especially like, you know, high use of high strength cannabis amongst young people. Who knows? Like, I think there's some really serious issues connected to that, and we may see them further along the line. That's the problem with all this research, is that a lot of it isn't long term. I mean, folks say that, you know, the issues are urgent, just like with other pharmaceutical medicines. And, you know, I agree with that to some extent. But yeah, when we're talking about like regular high dose use, whether it's cannabis, psychedelic or pharmaceutical, I think we need to be, really wary of that. I mean, less is more.